Welcome to XOXO Desiree Lakeisha, the table where anything goes as we talk life, love, and legacies for the trailblazers and visionaries ready to make their dreams a reality. I am your host, Desiree Lakeisha, embodied and energetic baddie who loves to get unhinged, unbound, and untethered in all the facets of life. Welcome to the show. Let's get it. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Desiree. I said it backwards, of XOXO Desiree Lakeisha. I'm your host, Desiree. I should know the name of my own podcast by this point, but it's cool. We're human. It's fine. I'm super excited for today's guest. You guys know I'm always super excited for today's guest. But today I have a new sister in the house. We're relatively new to each other's world, but she's just been like such a phenomenal addition to the circle of women that I get the opportunity to work with and communicate with on a regular basis. And I'm super excited to chat about everything today because she is in the world of astrology. So I feel like we're going to have some really dope conversations about like the spirituality, the energetics, all of that goodness. So without further ado, I will let Miss Raechelle, she told me how to pronounce her name this morning. I will let her introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so good to be here. I'm loving like the vibe of your new podcast, and it's so ironic how we connected because like I didn't even know that we had the same mentor, and I just
I
started with
know, me neither.
I just started, and then it was in conversation the other day, and then I was like, "Do you work with her?" And you're like, "Yeah." And I think it's really wild how she's created just such great community and sisterhood, and that is something I'm so passionate about. And all of my containers is like really healing that vulnerability of leaning into our sisters and like women and being able to create that like sacredness there, and something that I feel like is so missing in our coaching industry, especially with like highly driven women and entrepreneur space who are, intuitively led. And it's like, yeah, it's like we're not encouraged to lead in that way enough. And so I love it.
I agree. I know
And
she's been such an inspiration for me too.
yeah, 1000%. So, all right. And intro, I'm always like, what? I guess the basic, like, first of all, I'm just gonna introduce my sun, my moon, my rising, because I'm like,
I
so
know. Give
I'm
us juicy astro chart details. That's what we came for today.
yeah, I'm an Aquarius sun, Libra rising, Cap moon. I'm actually got an Aquarius like massive stellium, so I have like 4 personal planets in Aquarius, and same with Libra, massive stellium there, all conjunct my rising. And I share that because like one of the things I love to share through is the lens of like when we embody like our unique astro codes, that come to us that are ours and ours alone. It's like stepping into this like what those placements have really come here to like call me to do is lead as an intuitive channel, as an energetic, what I refer to alchemist. It's like moving energy in our bodies and our mind and our spirit and creating like soul led like vision for women. And I do this as through the lens of obviously being an intuitive guide, intuitive channel, spiritual mentor, and also astrology. And I do a lot of energy work as well. I call it soul activation with everything. So it's this like whole blend. And it's for, women themselves, their business, their lives. I also do animal communication, which I don't think you knew. It's kind of on the
Oh,
side.
cool. I'm like, wait, let me grab my dog.
Yeah. That's how I started. I started as an animal communicator 8 years ago, and I didn't realize like that I was always this was something I really did well, and I didn't understand it. I thought like, well, everybody does this, everybody can do this, and so I was competing and training with my personal dogs at like I went from like coming into the gateway of the door of like agility, confirmation, performance, we call that in that world, and very quickly just climbed and made some pretty high accolade achievements that were just like, oh my God, like I can't believe I'm doing this. And I've just lived a life with dogs and cats and horses and all animals. I'm like, I have 6 dogs right now. It's like my life is animals. They go with me everywhere. It's like, and that's like as I stepped into that pathway, and I was working with my personal animal communicator at the time, and she's like, Ray, you're so gifted, like you don't really need me, right? Like I love to bring you on.
Like, you can
And
let me
I
go whenever you want.
yeah, yeah. And she's like, I want to bring you on and I want you to start working with me. And so I did. And it was really edgy doing that
Mhm.
at the time, but I did. And ultimately ended up, that's how I started Radiant Vibes, leaning into that. And so the first year was all animals and working with, seniors, end of life and behavioral stuff. And I have a long like background, pre-vet, like all the things. And so it
Yeah.
all led to this whole space. And eventually the people were like, can you do for my animals what you're doing for me? Because their animals would work with me consecutively through energy work and the communication aspect of it. And they were seeing their animals like transform. I would work with animals that would go to be shown and they'd be like biting judges. And next thing you know, they're like the number one winning dog. It's like, it's wild.
Yeah.
And, and so, or they would have health issues like cancer, kidney issues, things like that. And sometimes people would come in like, I think I need to put my dog to sleep. And, they'd get a dose of energy and something would move through, or they get to the emotional root and the animal would perk up, and oftentimes like many live years and years after that. So it's been a wild journey there. And then moving into working with, the human aspect of it. And it took me a long time to really claim the astrologer, we'll call it label because I'm not the best with labels. It's hello Aquarius, like
Yeah.
being. And
Same. My husband is an Aquarius, so I'm like, don't label me. No.
yeah, but
Put me in a box.
like we have to lean into calling ourselves something because it's a part
Yes.
of reclaiming our power,
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I was like, but I don't do astrology the way that you see people out there. I have no desire to share on every transit, though I to intuitively lean into them. I'm not reading from my mind, right? I look at somebody's chart and I'm just like, here's where I feel like the energy expressing with what you've brought forward, and let's transmute this energy. Let's take this vulnerability in this chart and let's recode it into your superpowers. And oftentimes that is like the things that we fear the most, the things that we have the most resistance around, and we can see it in the chart and truly transform it from where it came from, whether that's karmically, past lives, in our childhood, and even in through relationships, knowing how like we lead ourselves through relationship, through love, through our feminine energetics, through speaking. There's so much that we can really wake up when we start to work with an embodied lens of astrology versus like identifying with the wounds, which puts us in victim mentality, or versus like taking all of this and keeping it in the mind, which I find so many people do with astrology. And so once I just claimed it as my own way and how I did it, it was like, yeah, this is what I am. I'm a fucking astrologer. Like I'm like an
Yeah,
evolutionary
fine. Call me
astrologer.
that. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. And I call it evolutionary astrology, which I feel like creates empowered energetics, So, anyways, that's a little bit about my story. And now I just work with, I work with so much. It's like this is where I feel like over the culmination of 8 years, it's just led to being able to, the animal communication is it's really honestly become like people that work with me, senior animals, end of life, um, counsel moving through that. I keep it very specific. I take one high level dog, like show type animal a year, and I work with them through the whole year. And I've done that for several years. And it's amazing. Like just being able to sit side by side and like, watch them shine on TV and, come out. And it's just so much fun at that part of it. And then working with women in their business, women in their body, women in sacred soul expression, women in the feminine, creating like feminine and masculine, healthy like energetics in our lives and their relationships, boundaries. There's like no end to it. And so I really am in love with the work that I do. So
I feel like you and I share that
yeah,
particular passion really deeply, right? Like I
no,
knew in our first conversation, I was like, oh, she gets it. Like I know I can like say exactly what I want to say and not have to like like when you mean et cetera, et cetera. Like I knew I didn't
Yeah.
have to explain myself. You knew like the depth at which I was talking. And I feel like it's very similar with Tantra, right? Like Tantra is so it's still we have all of these women teaching these very like sensually expressed ways of living online, right? And still it's a very taboo subject. Still,
Yeah.
when I bring it up, like in the regular world, when I'm out talking to people, they're
Yeah.
like, whoa, you teach Tantra? And like they'd immediately get this vision, I think, of me in like this harem with women. And like,
Yeah. I know.
but it's like, it's not like that, first of all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
second of all, we do the deep dive so that we create the muscle memory. I think that's what's cool about what you and I do is like, yes, sure, if you wanted to really simplify what I do, I walk people through a process of healing, but the way it carries over to life is endless. And I
Mhm.
feel like you and I share that in our work. Like they can apply it to business, they can apply it to love, they can apply it to anything, like their family relationships with their animals, like you said, right? Like any, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
literally endless. And I think that the intuitive piece of that is so important because oftentimes we rely on like the structure, the charts, right? And I love that you do this intuitively because honestly, that's how I learned astrology. Like
Mhm.
I had a reader who I saw maybe like two or three times. And then outside of that, I just would like read my chart and I'm like, oh, okay. So I can see how I've done this like here in this relationship, here at work, here with myself, right? It's such
Yeah.
it gives us the ability to transform multiple things at once and alchemize multiple energies at once. And that is how you like really quote unquote quantum leap, right? It's not as complicated as we make it sound moving into a new reality, but taking the time to go through the self-exploration that's required.
Yeah.
That's the key
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, and it's like with astrology, I feel like, you can go and you can read all these things online and like you said, do a lot of your own kind of diving in. But what I find with that is most of the women that connect with me are really stuck in their minds. They
Mm,
are very type A, they're high achieving people. They've let, whether it's coming to me for business, whether it's coming to me because they have these badass careers and they're just ready for like, they feel very disconnected from their body. They feel disconnected from life, and they've created all of this like amazing success in the way of like the tangibles, but
right.
the untangibles of how they feel as far as the intimacy in their relationship, the intimacy with their career, their business, the intimacy with their own body, with themselves, and even intimacy with the mind. It's like, and so there's just all this thinking, all this pressure, and all this disconnect. And what I love to refer with astrology is because when we look at it from a karmic standpoint too, is we can see so instantly, I can just look and like, and it's almost like looking at a specific aspect that I'm drawn to, and you can see into that person's childhood. You can see into the lens of like, how they maybe have moved in relationship, in sacred expression, in their body, like the relationship with the body. And so it's an invitation for them to open up into something that they have not been able to tap into yet. So it's like it's just
Mhm.
it's more of like, here's what I'm seeing, like, how does that resonate for you? How does that land for you? What was that like for you? And then as they start speaking, it's like, oh my gosh, for example, like, I was working with somebody yesterday who has Chiron and Gemini, and it's in her third house, and Gemini rules her third house, which third house is Gemini ruled to begin with. It is all about expression, and in this day and age, in modern, like if we apply to modern terms, it's about, honestly, like when I see really strong placements in third house, like you will become a social media like magnet,
Yeah.
and when you heal that frequency that is inhibiting. And so how this played out for her, it's also with the siblings, third house is siblings, things like, so
Mhm.
you look at the houses for like how this could really be expressing itself, this placement could be expressing itself. And then you look at the planet for like the energy of that planet, and you look at the sign for like a more personal way. So it's this whole
It
um
is.
like all this happens in the blink of
Mhm.
like 0.5 seconds for me because it's all intuitive. Like I didn't learn astrology. It was like a past life gift, truthfully.
Right.
And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so then when we start to like look at it through this lens and we start to wake these things up in ourselves and we're like, oh, I can see why. And like with this particular woman, she was a mute in high school, literally would not
Mm,
talk at all.
mm,
She was notorious for like going and creating posts and deleting them right away. She would also like in coaching containers just kind of silence her voice many times. Fear of expression, recall like messages, like recall different things because she had such a fear of vulnerability of speaking. And it's so interesting because even as she tried to heal from it, like of starting to speak and not being a mute and all of that, it's like she still was having this massive resistance to sharing and that. So it's like as we walk through that and we walk through that both like in the physical, in our physical world, and also walking through that with the fear, and then walking through that through the energy realm, because so much of this is energetics. It's like we don't just like say fear go away. We have to learn to walk alongside the fear and recognize like this is my current reality and I am the creator of this reality, and so I can create safety in my body to lean through these vulnerable pieces and these vulnerable parts. And that's how I love to use astrology, is like it's a transmutation of these. And ultimately, it's so wild. Like she's been working with me several times. And this was like coming in yesterday. After her second session of moving through this, she created a reel, literally went viral. Like, I mean, I'm over 1 million views. Like, insane.
oh
Like
my
she
gosh.
found her edge and like
Uh,
she shared something that was really vulnerable. Now she did get some naysayers quite a bit, she did get something, but she also had to meet that like, no, I'm not going to give my power away to this. I'm still going to keep sharing about this because I love this so much and I'm so convicted, and she's done it like brilliantly. So that's how these things can shift. It's really, I get chills just like I'm like, yeah.
no, yeah, absolutely. And you know, I feel like I'm obviously very like in tune. I always joke with my partner about I'm always like, babe, all these women make so much more money than me. Like every client who I work with, same. They're very high achieving women. These are women who are doctors, surgeons, and I work with women in both worlds, corporate and entrepreneurial. So like either way, no matter how they come to me, tangibly on paper, they're more successful than me, right? But like when we break down, and I say
Right
that
now.
with
We'll
all
say
the air
right
quotes,
now.
right? I say that with all the air quotes, all the knowing that like I
Yeah.
know where I'm going, right? I no by no means am I downplaying myself, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just saying right now, yeah, they're further along in their career specifically, right? In that way. And so they have all these tangible pieces and they've kind of gone through like all the steps that they were told were going to make them happy, but didn't. And they're still like stuck, like you were saying, kind of still stuck in that cycle and ready to break it. And what
Mhm.
I think, what I wanted to address earlier too was like that piece about being intuitive. I feel that so deeply because
Mhm.
I didn't go study a ton of tantra and somatics before I started teaching it. I did take one course that was trauma informed, so that was really good just to like make sure that I was going to do this with a strong moral compass for myself. But outside of that, within that course, the teacher told me, she was like, "You've done this before." And it's funny because I have past life memories of being like a madam. So I don't know if that's where I remember it from, but like she was like, you don't really need any more education. She's like, you just need to start practicing with people.
Mhm.
And we talked a little bit about because this course in particular offered like Reiki. So in that course, I also learned Reiki and spinal energetics. I don't use them very often in calls with clients at all, really, because I want it to be intuitive for them as well. A lot of the work women come to me for is intuition building, right? And it's like, okay, well then we have to take the what do we call them? The training wheels off, and we have to really practice that muscle. We have to stretch
Yeah.
that muscle and use it so that we know that it's safe to trust ourselves to go there,
Mhm.
right? It's such like we talk about trusting ourselves to express, trusting ourselves to make the big, bold move. but we have to incorporate that safety. So I love what you said about that and it being intuitive because it is also different for everybody. There's no one size fits all. It's not, one person's activation is not the same as the next person's.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned taking a course and doing that. It's like I feel that there is power in like you having taken that course because it's like, it woke those codes up in you. It woke
Mhm.
them up. And
Oh
so
yeah,
it's just like
absolutely.
being energies to, awaken these dormant, gifts that oftentimes lay dormant. And so it's like until we are in a container, and that's what happened with me with astrology. It's like I found her name is Vika Bradford. Highly recommend. Look her up. Anybody on here? She's been on my podcast. She's a really dear friend of mine. And when I connected with her, I saw how she really worked with astrology so similar to me. And she has a really strong Pluto frequency like myself. And so us like Plutonian individuals is like we either repel or we magnetize. And
Yeah.
that can be a really hard vibration to live with at times until you just learn like you're actually here to lead. You're here, you're deeply intuitive, deeply psychic. And she talked about things that I knew about that nobody talked about, like a Hades moon, and which I shared with you. And
Right.
these
Yeah.
really phenomenal, unique things that you don't hear talked about often enough.
Mhm.
And healing the witch wound in there, like I worked with Hecate, Persephone, like all these other aspects in Black Moon Lilith and in our charts that are just so profound at healing the divine feminine within us and like really resurrecting that goddess that we like suppress until we get it activated. So, she was great at showing, like reflecting that, but and it's like stuff I knew, but what happened is when I saw her leading in this way, I was like, oh fuck, I can do this. I'm gonna lead in this way. Like this is like we do need, I hate when people say you don't need permission slip, just go do the
Oh,
freaking thing.
I
Like, oh,
know, I know.
validation.
I
It's like,
hate that.
I'm sorry, like us as humans, like we do sometimes need
Do. Yeah.
that. And this is where, like, for me, astrologically too, is owning that Hades moon. Why couldn't I really fully express the like most amazingness of a Capricorn moon, which is Capricorn moons? It's a very debilitating placement. It's
Yeah.
honestly like the moon is the least at home in Capricorn,
But
you know,
yeah.
and
Very
so
clumsy.
yeah, it
Yeah.
creates like so much pressure and it's and one of the healings for me with this because with this Hades moon, which is for a Hades moon is just like when your moon is either in the eighth house, your moon squares Pluto, your moon is opposite Pluto, your moon is conjunct Pluto. um there's it or like if you have Pluto conjunct your IC as well, that can be like also a big expression of it too. And so it makes it harder to access the potency of your moon, which your moon is hard. It's the shadow anyways. It's a little harder to access anyways. But then you have this, and it's like Pluto is like the death, the transformation, the darkness, it's
Yeah.
all of this. And a lot of women that come into my world have this frequency and they it's deep mother wounding with a Capricorn moon. It's mother, it's father, and depending on what house, it could be other things as well. So and it's really here like healing that witch wound frequency and clearing a lot of generational like there's a lot of placements that lead to like generational curse breakers, but like this is one that really does it for the feminine in the collective as
Mm.
well. And so life difficult. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
women with this frequency, they have probably had like strong tendencies towards addiction,
Mm.
towards a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, uh, poor relationship with the body. And this, so it's like but the potency in this, and this is where I say, like, okay, like what were those experiences around? Yes, you had to learn a lot through those, and you're constantly moving through like a death and rebirth cycle in your life, and then it at a very intense level, right? But it is also like you're really here to lead other women through this. So like it's kind of like Pluto is an initiation in this aspect of like I'm going to give you these experiences, but really these are deep initiations for you to heal
Mm.
through. And ultimately, like I'm going to give you like a lot that you're going to be able to lead
Yeah.
other people with. And so it's really powerful work. And for me, that looked like a lot of disentangling my worth outside for a Cap Moon, like disentangling my worth outside that isn't, so it's not tied to anything external. So um and it was scary going through this initiation because
Mhm.
my world was stripped. You know, my business took a massive pivot. My business, like old clients were being stripped away, like money was being stripped away, like
Yeah.
literally my income was stripped in half. And I was like,
Yeah.
as a Capricorn moon, it's like, oh my effing God, you know,
Yeah.
like this cannot be happening. And
I
like
know.
I at that time I learned to trust a lot of like, yeah,
Yeah.
low month, whatever, it wasn't a big deal. Girl, this went on for like 7 months
This was
until
the regular thing.
yeah. And then it's like having to learn as this frequency to really play in the unknown and really
Mhm.
lean into the unknown and dismantle anything outside of me that was connected to the amount of people coming in, the amount of money coming in, the amount of money in my bank account, and also realizing like money can come to me in all different ways. And I'm not going to tie my identity just to my business. Like,
Yeah.
and that is such a potent Capricorn frequency. It's big business, big structure, coming
Mhm.
out, leading in this way, leading in like the Aquarius frequency, very unique way. So I'm just giving like examples of how when we transmute this, and sometimes that Plutonian, when we go through these big tough transits, we don't realize that what they actually are is initiations for you and how you're going to then lead. And I will tell you, like the way that asked me to show up in my
So
life
true.
and my business is like
Yeah.
there's no going back. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
see how it's like, oh crap, it's all coming together now. Now it's all here. And it was just trusting in that what I couldn't see,
Mhm.
and so it's amazing. And when that happens, it's like literally last week, I had a conversion that resulted from 4 women into a channel like Voxer offering, which was 3 days of coaching, intuitive guidance, mentorship inside of Voxer called the channel. And I was like, well, I wished I had more, but you know what? I'm trusting right now that this is how that there's something in this for these women. And that
Yeah.
led to all 4 women converting and literally a $10,000 conversion within two
Nice.
days. And this
Yeah.
is where it's like, okay, I'm trusting in this. I'm not going to tie like my value, my worth to like, oh, I only got
Mhm.
people in this. Well, you know what? I've also made a pivot. I've also made some different things. So, the women are there. They've just got to keep coming up and I'm going to keep choosing this path and choosing this and leading in this way. And then it's like, then we see this, the results in the tangible way is like money, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh, wow. Okay, there it is, and like you said, the quantum leap in that essence. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree about that permission slip piece too. It's like I feel like we do, especially when we want to do life unconventionally, when
mhm.
we want to like unhinge and untether ourselves from the programs and systems that are at play because they're going to stay at play even though we're off in our own world doing our healing and expanding, right? So this isn't just like, oh, I get to go sit with my mentor for a few months and like learn these things and then go back to life as is and it's all going to be perfect. Like, no, we have to change your entire lifestyle, how you
Yeah.
think about life, what you believe sometimes, even, right? I know in my work, like I'm sure with you too, we usually talk a lot about spirituality and like recoding our belief system around that as well. And I think if you desire to make any huge change like that in your life, you need a permission slip because it's scary, right? We haven't done it yet because we don't feel safe. And
Yeah.
oftentimes we just need someone to go first. We need
Yeah.
someone to show us that it's safe to do that thing, to trust themselves and to be a little vulnerable and maybe not know the whole way it's going to pan out and then
Yeah.
show us what's possible anyways, right? And it's kind of cool because it's like we're on the ride together. I'm like, well, I also don't know what's going to happen, but you're coming with me.
Yeah, and like nobody, like I don't know, in this space, like I feel like especially for you and I, like, and probably anybody in your community listening, is we are very intuitively led individuals, and that creates a very unique like perspective in the way of being able to see energy in a very different way. And like you said, it's like, belief codes is huge. I mean, recoding and decoding untruths and belief codes of like, what are the stories we're telling ourselves about anything, about when we go to
Anything.
speak,
Yeah.
are we telling ourselves nobody wants to hear what I have to say? Are we telling ourselves like what I have to say doesn't matter? Are we telling ourselves like what I know is not enough? And even like with the permission slip, it's like beautiful to have that, but we don't get that. I feel like we only get that when we're willing to step in. And then
Yes,
all of a sudden we align with like
absolutely.
a mentor, the coach, or other women that are doing similar things. And we create this sacred sisterhood all amongst everything. But it's like, we don't get that until we're willing to lean into it. Just by sitting and silencing ourselves, you're not going to co-create and align with these people that actually activate what is dormant in you. You have to be
Mhm.
willing to go first in your own life and take that step. Then you start co-creating different experiences. Then you start aligning with the people that really activate and expand. And it's like, oh fuck, they're doing that. Yeah, I'm all on this, man. Like it's,
Exactly.
and that's where the excitement and the expansion comes from you taking aligned action into that. And that's like healthy use of masculine. And then it's like in the aligned action into the vision of whatever your desires are. This could be a desire to feel more sexy and sensual in your body. So like, what are you going to do with the masculine energies in your life that say, all right, I'm going to take one step forward in this of a way of like, what do I need to read today? What do I need to like touch on today with this? What do I need to kind of look up around? And then I'm going to lean back in the feminine and I'm just going to feel into that sensuality and create this peace and surrender around that in my life. And, but like, we need that masculine frequency there to
Oh,
hold that
absolutely.
feminine
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. The masculine, I always tell my queen bees, I always tell them masculine is where we find the safety, right? That's where we make the structure. That's where I I think that when I first kind of made this pivot, and I also came from the health and fitness world, so it was a pretty drastic pivot.
Yeah.
But I think when I first made this pivot, there was a lot of women landing in my inbox from my health and fitness world who were trying to figure out like they're like, "Are you mad at men?" Like they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like,
Sometimes. I mean,
I'm
sometimes,
like,
yeah.
"Well, yeah, but
Sometimes
when
I'm
I'm
pissed
talking
at patriarchy,
I
you
know,
know?
right? Seriously, listen, there's some feminine rage in this body that's just we have healthy ways of getting it out now.
Yeah.
Um, but I told them, I was like, well, number one, when I say the masculine now, I talk about the energy, not just men. I'm like,
Right.
but also the masculine, and I was talking about this in our portal actually earlier this morning, is the masculine just means the 3D, really, right? It's like, what is the doing? What is like the tangible movement? When you see my hand reach out to grab the water bottle, right? That's what the masculine is. And we need that. We absolutely have to have that structure to
Yeah.
create the safety and depth for the
Mhm.
feminine to feel that like flow, that beautiful, just delicious way of living life.
Mhm.
We have to have safety. And
Yeah.
I think there's a big misconception that somebody who is interested in expanding through their feminine energy or elevating their feminine energy is like not interested in structure. And I'm like, do you understand how much my days would fall apart if I didn't have my
Yeah. Yeah,
structure?
you need
But
it.
it's the process. And I love to break this down too. I always break this down for my clients. There's the structure and then there's the process. And in the
Mhm.
process is where we get to be feminine, right?
Yeah.
That's where we get to really, like you said, reclaim our worthiness. And I wanted you to actually kind of go a little deeper on this. I love what you said about the I've always heard of astrology as like your inner world,
Mhm.
right? Describing your inner world. But I love the way that you talk about it as something that can come with us. Like it's not something that we just heal it and it stays behind, right? It's not like I said, it's not like we're going to go heal in this cave for 6 months and then come out and like, okay, life is great. So can you share a little bit about like the deeper work you do when somebody is transmuting like a specific planet or a specific energy when it comes to how they alchemize it in the outer world?
Yeah. So first of all, it comes with, I always say, like, everything first is awareness. You
Yeah.
know, it's bringing that awareness in because you can't transmute what you don't know. Like
Mhm.
anything, you are a result of your knowing. Even like, okay, for example, like with intuition, it's like I'm extremely intuitive, psychic, whatever you want to call it. Um, and, at the same time, as I evolve, so does that ability. Like it's only as powerful as our evolution, as our own
Yeah.
expansion, right? So, and this is how I look at this through the same with whether it's astrology or whether it's an intuitive download coming through, because I'm a channel. So it's like, if four placements in Aquarius. I have Mercury in Aquarius. Like Mercury and Aquarius humans are by nature very strong channels. Like they're bringing stuff out from very future realms, coming down into
Mm.
this and bringing it into the grounded reality. Capricorn moon, ground this into reality. No. And so let's create a reality. And I think this is where when we start to really embody like the power of our charts is like where we can have this stand, like really like move through. So for example, too, if somebody has a really hard time leaning into feminine, as we're talking about in this, we'll just say in this space, I would look at, okay, well, our one, do they have a really high Capricorn's like frequency in their chart? Because there is no way a Capricorn woman who has like a Stella, like
But then I have a
five.
Cancer sun. So they were like, have fun.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's lovely though, because the Capricorn energy grounds the Cancerian, gives you a lot of masculine into that
Absolutely.
feminine, into that
Yeah.
intuition, and also probably gives you the ability where like you come in, you want to be the nurturer as the Cancer, and it's like, okay, I can't give all of myself here, which would be low Cancerian frequency of like over giving just to be loved.
Yes. Yeah.
And so this is like in this example, it's like the Cancerian frequency I like would share. Maybe this person is like, I don't know, my boundaries are weak. I feel like I'm trying to use my voice to say that I'm not going to do this anymore, but it's not happening.
Mm.
Um, I overgive to my clients. I'm constantly going over time. They push back. I'm not feeling solid and doing that yet. I love to nurture, but I'm attracting more of this like victimized type of energy where women are really stuck and needing me to save them, right? So this might be something that as if it was somebody with a high Cancerian frequency, whether it doesn't necessarily have to be your sun, it can be, I look at like Saturn. I want to look at where Uranus is. I want to look at where Chiron is. I want to look at where Pluto is here. What are those aspects doing with the personal planets, which are the sun, rising, our moon, our Mercury, our Venus? Okay. And that's where the restrictions are. It's like these bigger elements, these very karmic energies, and how are they communicating to these personal elements within our chart? And so it's not like I don't go into the whole thing all at once. It's like, here's where this is being expressed in this moment. What I'm feeling is a strong frequency coming up, and these frequencies come from soul. It's like the soul is now letting the body know it's time to purge this. It's time to
Yeah.
access this, remove it, and clear it. And so once we have the awareness and we're looking at how this is expressing in the life with like a Cancerian energy, I'd be like, wow, you have all this Capricorn stuff. What are your planets in Capricorn? This will help. Like, please.
I know Mercury, not Venus. Venus is in Cancer. What comes after Venus?
Um, well, as far as like, so you would have like personal planets would be like Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Black Moon Lilith, which I know you're familiar with. You could
Yeah.
have Neptune,
Okay.
Pluto.
I know my Uranus and my Mercury are.
Okay. So one thing I would say with a Mercury, especially because that's how you communicate, right? I would say, to this person, like, okay, let's use this really strong Capricorn energy and let's wake it up in your chart. And so Capricorn strength is very grounded communication that when you find your voice will be calm, it will be grounding, and it's really good at setting energetic standards for everybody around. Like Capricorns have high standards for themselves and for life, you
So
know?
funny that you say that
Yeah.
because in the last year or so, people are like, when I hear you talk, it's like I read your words and they're so big and powerful, but then I hear you talk and you're so calm and just like relaxed. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and so that takes the masculine energetics of the Capricorn
Um,
energy, and
mm,
then you're using that to like ground your voice so that's heard. So then when you go to speak your boundaries of, hey guys, this is how this container is actually going to go from now on, and keep your like if it was a Voxer thing, keep your voice memos under 3 minutes. Try to really be precise in your question. It's okay to externally process a little bit, but let's like really be very intentional with our questions. And at that, like we're going to cap the space out at like 3 questions per day.
mhm.
And that would, to me, feel like for a Cancerian frequency, be very supportive to her now, you being able to go in and say, oh God, now I can breathe. I can nurture the hell out of these women in this very safe way that feels relaxed and easy to my body. And I know that that is the way to set a really healthy boundary. And I'm going to be able to lead in my feminine, which is my intuition, and hold these women and access their feminine as well. So that's a very like small example of it. And then from there, if this person was like, I might give very tangible. This is where like my Capricorn Aquarius energy is like, this is like, here, let's go co-create differently, because you can't
Mhm.
co-create externally differently until you move alongside the fear. So this person, you
Yeah,
could at one point have had a really big fear of expressing these boundaries to people in your life,
absolutely.
your loved ones, you know? So, and the reasons why, probably various things that you went through in childhood, karmic imprints from past lives that you just might not even be aware of, right? Until you look at these. And then we start accessing, okay, where's the fear still coming up? All right, let's go to the body. Let's bring some soul activation down, which is where we start to clear it from the body, do via energy. It's like my own channeled energy work.
Mhm.
Let's clear it through the body. And there's a lot of channel transmissions that come through for this person to activate this in them. And then we attune to the frequencies. What are the new frequencies you want to call in? I want a strong voice. I want people to hear me. I want to create these really healthy, energetic standards for myself and for others that aren't like, so expectational, right? Because we don't want that Capricorn can get super expectational, right? And
Yeah,
be
for
very like
sure.
rigid, it's like, let's like dismantle
Yeah.
that, And so then, we do that, and then all of a sudden, like it's like the person, the human creates this and starts doing it. And they're like, oh my God, that felt amazing. It's a wave of relief that starts to happen. And then you start to not fear it, because all of a sudden your worst fears of like, everybody's going to be so mad at me. Everybody's going to exit this Baxter space. And I just know it and nobody wants to hear it. And it's like, no. And then you start to see, actually, I was received. People are
Yeah,
receiving me in my truth and my power. And this is amazing. And now I can stand even more in my truth and my power and guide them to that space. Does that help make that? Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's the behind the scenes. It's like, how do I
I know.
summarize
I was like, so how,
possible?
what's the how? But like, take me through the experience because I'm all about like the full sensory part too, obviously. Yeah, no.
Well,
Um,
and part of this too is like with human design, I'm a line 3-6, and the 6 is unconscious, but the
yes.
6 is truly like where I have leaned in and healed so much again with human design. Like why I was so disdained from it forever is because it was coming across so masculine and keeping
Yeah.
in the mind. Like I will not, people come to me and they're like, will you teach me branding through my astrology and through human design? I'm like, absolutely not. That is not what I'm here for. And the reason why is because that's going to just keep you trapped more in the mind.
Still
And
in a box.
oftentimes that's
Mhm.
a deterrent from doing the thing that we actually need to do to move and walk alongside fear. And so this
Mhm.
is where I'm like, no, but here's what I will do.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to move
Yeah.
through this, and you're going to see where this is. And it's so funny when they just chuckle. They're like, oh my God, I
I
know I'm
know.
avoiding this. Like.
I feel like you and I do the same thing because that's definitely a standard I set when women come into my
Yeah.
world too. The first
Yeah.
thing they usually want to ask me is something like, what does your daily sensual somatic practice look like? What does your daily embodiment practice look like? And I'm like, no, I won't give you mine because it's going to be different from yours. That's what we're here to do. We're here to explore a little bit, build it together and then take what we learn. I love the way you talked about using the intuition and like that soul activation piece. It's so important.
Mhm.
It's actually a huge motivation. So we're recording this on the day that I launched my behind the scenes community that I'm going to be opening actually. And so it's going to be like a free transmission community. And the whole point of this is because I have women ask me these questions every single time we hop on our onboarding call. What does
Yeah.
your embodiment practice look like? How do you do it? And I want to share how I do it. I want to take you deep, but then I also want you to land with it in your own soul
Yeah.
and alchemize it how it's right for you. Because just because my practice looks a certain way doesn't mean that's what you need. And my practice at this point changes day to day, even like my embodiment practice this morning didn't look like what it looked like yesterday, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that piece of really coming home to the soul and the intuition, I talk a lot about like reclaiming the soul because if we are disconnected from it, and to me, it's like the soul is the marriage of it all. It's like the marriage of your mind, your body, your heart, your internal knowing, right? What the universe, the magic that was created within your cellular DNA when like you came here,
Yeah.
that is your soul. And that always carries some kind of resonant message, right? And so like my embodiment practices every day are built off of that knowing.
Yeah.
It's knowing that this is in alignment and where do I need to shift it. And so I love the way you use astrology to really do the same thing, right? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where like, kind of going back to like telling somebody with a really like your Capricorn placements aren't like I would look more at like where's this person's sun, where's this person's Venus and things like that. Telling a Capricorn soul who has, 5 planets in the 10th house to not work so much is like actually debilitating to them.
right.
So this it's like, they're you are literally like telling them like
Them not to be themselves. Yeah,
yes. And
I
so like
know.
telling a Virgo stellium, somebody with a high Virgo frequency to not like teach in very structured ways, to, not be bossy, to not do, it's like, come on, you're a little OCD, just freaking
Yeah.
own it. But like, how can we like get out of it being so heavy, in a way that, with the Virgo energy that could be very over analytical and almost get to this like analysis paralysis and not move forward, right?
Yeah.
Or have this deep resistance to connecting with the body when our earth frequency is Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus. The one thing that they are here to do is learn to come into completion into their body, learn how to exist in their body and get out of the mind. But you still need the power of that. So it's like, what I would say to this as somebody with a high like Capricorn frequency in the 10th house of like business or in the 6th house of daily structures, routines, business, all of that stuff, I would say to them, yes, this is your magic, but you've also got to learn how to be in flow with life in harmonious ways and create from a place of ease that well, you can sit back and receive that money that you desire, that big,
Yeah.
flourishing of the external coming to you, because to a Capricorn soul, money does equal a lot of stability,
Mhm.
so it's very hard for them to tap into the feminine, into the body, because they're
Mhm.
like always chasing the next goal.
Yep.
And so it's like you can do this with all of the signs, it's like with like uh a Leo frequency, a high Leo frequency, telling them to just not shine
Right.
is
To
really,
not show up and be
yes.
amazing. Like, they're
Yeah.
like, what?
And like a great example of this is I have a community called The Temple that I collaborate with a very dear soul sister, Jenny Kahn. And she has, I know she won't mind me sharing this, but just for some more context, like she has a Leo rising. She also has Venus and Leo in the first house. So first
Mm.
house is showing up in that identity of that, and Venus there, like, I
Yeah.
want to be seen. And she shows up in such a different way than I do, which is beautiful and great. But like, if I were to look at her and get triggered because she comes on in a full face of makeup and beautiful
Mhm.
red lipstick, and her hair's always done really beautiful and nice, and she shares more lavishly, like in dresses and all these things, to me, that would be like so just restrictive for her.
Yeah.
She wants to be
Yeah.
heard. She wants to be seen. So I sit back and I'm like, you know what? This is part of her medicine and her magic being expressed in a way that's actually really healthy and beautiful and illuminating to other women and empowering them if they want to dance with the
Mhm.
feminine in this way to do it. And so it's like, this is where we get to like have such a respect for all individuals in that way of like, she is here to be expressed. And then for me, it's like, I'm here as with all this in my 5th house of Leo, which is
Yeah.
very like Aquarius all in the Leo house, but so it's a
Mhm.
little hard to access, but I am here to lead people through expression, to feel and be seen in expression. And so this is where it's like for her being in the space is like when I'm heard, I want to be when I'm speaking, I want to truly be heard.
Yeah.
And this is
Mhm.
how we get to heal, and we get to have these conversations and these collaborations of like,
Mhm.
here's what feels so juicy and yummy to me to lead in this space, and here's what, and we're not restricting each other, we're actually supporting each other in a whole unique way that is so potent and so powerful, that's like clearing all this witch wound, all this like wounding of the sisterhood, all of this past lineage where all of us intuitives are really here to lead. Like for me in the line 6, it's like
Yeah.
in very unique ways and different ways that have not been touched before.
Mhm. Absolutely. Same. I know we both share that sixth line too. I think I've told you before. I'm a
Oh, you
six
do?
too.
Yes, I
So
love
yeah. my 6 is in the front, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very interesting role, literally,
Yeah.
to be in.
How old are you again? Do you mind my
I'll
asking?
be 32 in June.
Oh, so you just got out of your Saturn return. So like you're
Yes.
now you just hit your on the roof phase of your life.
Yep.
So
It feels good.
for now, just wait. Because when
I
you hit
know, I'm
the
like,
roof, like what
I feel
happened
like I
last
can breathe a little bit, but I'm also like, I bet in
year.
about 3 years, I'm gonna be like, are we done yet?
Oh, I mean, I loved my on the roof phase. I did so much fucking cool shit. I was in flow. I was all over the place and like it
Oh,
was
it's how I
great. Yes, I had
feel.
healing in relationships and stuff, but I mean, I moved across the
Absolutely.
country and like, I don't know, just all kinds of wild stuff. And then when I went to come down off the roof, it started last year early because a lot of times they say at your Chiron return, but this is where, again, I don't give my power away to, oh, this is what textbook says or whatever, or textbook says technically as a line 6, you can't lead until you're 50. And it's like, no, that's bullshit. I'm going to lead now. I'm going to do my shit now. And
Exactly.
I'm going to
Right.
do it while I'm healing. And I'm going to show other people that we don't have to be perfectly healed just to do the freaking thing. Like, that's just not even something that exists, you know?
Yeah,
And so it's like really happened for me last year. And it's like my body went through shock coming back down. And
I'm sure.
literally, like my
No,
hormones
I'm
went through the
sure.
roof.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking, it was just like holy cow. And that's when all this death and rebirth and Pluto was conjunct my
Mhm.
Mercury. And like again, I don't want to freak anybody out about these transits,
Of
and I
course.
don't lead my life through this. But when I'm having this challenging year, where so much is stripping away, where I am just moving through like one initiation after initiation after initiation, which is like you say the word, it sounds so liberating. And it's not, it's fucking not. Like you
Mhm.
literally are like rising, you're being burned down, you're rising like the phoenix, like it gets,
Oh,
but then you
yeah.
get out of it and it's like, all right, now I see. And what happened for me is like ultimately, as I started to speak my truth, healing that Aquarius in the fifth house of expression, healing that Leo frequency. I have Saturn in Leo, leaning into where I was fearful. Saturn in Leo in the 11th house, leading in groups. It always felt like I want to do it, but I'm scared. And now I'm like, it's like
Mhm.
the love of my life, and Saturn's like, great, great girl. I'm
You
here I
did
am. I'm your daddy.
it.
I'm your daddy because this is Saturn is the daddy. I'm your daddy. I'm going
Exactly.
right now for that shit. This is
I
where,
love that.
yeah.
I literally told my best friend just a few months ago, I was like, I'm gonna call him Big Daddy Saturn from now on because
Yes.
those last few years, man, I'm like, oh, we did it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And Saturn's good for your Mercury. I mean, you're comfortable enough in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And for those of us that aren't comfortable in Saturn energy, they're going to hit these, Saturn oppositions, which is where Saturn in the sky is opposite your natal Saturn, or a square to Saturn, or Pluto square your Saturn, or Pluto conjunct your Saturn. I mean, holy cow, or like Saturn opposite Venus in your chart natally, that's going to make it really hard for you to lean into relationships because as that soul, a Pluto opposite Venus, I'm sorry, Saturn opposite Venus is like, they're really healing through love.
Mm.
Saturn is like asking you to put yourself in very difficult relational experiences. And the whole thing is like to keep doing it so that you're not sacrificing in love, like you're actually creating autonomy and unity at the same time. And so my fiance and I both have Saturn opposite Venus, and we met at 44. I was 44 and he was 51. And I say all the time, like, we both went through so much in our relationships to get to this point where
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, there's challenging moments, but the way that we move through it is like, man, I have seen so much worse than this. This is like great. Like, let's just have this conversation and let's just like move. It's like,
I'm gonna, as soon as we get done, I'm gonna go look at my partner's chart again, and I'm gonna be thinking about all the things we just talked about.
yes,
Because
wild.
that's so funny. I feel like Tyler and I are entering this chapter where it's like ease and flow kind of, and we've been through quite a bit together. Like we
Yeah.
got together when we were 23.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so we were together through quite pivotal years of our young adult life, and
Yeah.
we've grown together amazingly. Obviously we've put in, some real work to do that, but also um the view I have on relationships now is so different. It's so different. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, yeah, I think we earn the love that we get. And that's not to blame ourselves, right? not to say we're responsible for like if you're in an abusive relationship or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But like when we can allow ourselves to love ourselves to the depth that we're craving,
Mhm.
then we can see that in all our other relationships
We
with
start to
everyone
call it
else.
in,
Yeah.
even somebody who is in a very abusive relationship. It's like the moment you
Yeah.
decide, you know what, I am going to take my power back from this and I am going to exit this. And then I'm going to trust in the unknown that as I make this very potent decision for my life, for my children, or whatever, it's like the doorways will open up, the help will open up. But it's not until you claim it and say, I'm going to do this, and then you start the healing process. But you've got to create that actionable space to like claim your power and take your power back. And then you go through, the stress of whatever it is, exiting the relationship or whatever, and then you start to heal that frequency. It's like, but that it's oftentimes like I think it gets misunderstood as like we're going to heal it as soon as we do it, but it's like no, you do these things a lot of the times first, and then
Right.
we start to sit with the healing on this. And then we start to like connect better to ourselves and love ourselves. And as we start to love ourselves and accept ourselves, whether it's like parts of your body that you just despise, or, a Chiron and Taurus human, they're going to come in with a lot of body image issues,
Mm.
but they're really here healing their connection with their body as the temple, as sacred space. And they're going to have this deep fear of like, a lot of them have body dysmorphia. A lot of them fear like money just being stripped away from them because these souls in previous lifetimes have literally had this happen or been prosecuted or had something happen to their body. And so it's amazing to see how this all like plays out, but ultimately it's like even the healing in that, or the other dynamic of somebody leaving an abusive space is like coming home to love with yourself. And as you start to come in love with yourself, like then you attract people, you start to co-create in your external reality, women that are also going, or men or relationships, whatever it is, whenever it's time, that are also going to see you in your power, that are also going to see you with so much love. And they're going to see you with like all of the goodness that you have. But that has to, like you said, it has to come, it always, always starts with ourselves first, always.
Yeah. Mm. I love this, Rachel. We have to do another one. We have to do another one. I'm like, man, it's already been an hour. How?
Well, I'm telling you, this
I feel
happens
like
all the time with people with
we
me.
just
Like they'll say,
started.
they'll say, my podcast is like 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm just letting you know what happens in my world is
The
like, I'm moving
same.
energy in here. And this is part of the gift. It's like, I'm moving energy and writing across to the Sphinx. Like it's like always moving energy. And I swear it's like time collapses. It's like,
Yeah,
how are we still here?
literally. I
It's
know. I
so
look
cool.
down, my timer is like, you're done. I'm like, no, we're not. We'll do
Yeah.
the second episode for sure. But this was amazing. Thank you so much too for like reading me on air for everybody. So you guys got a little juice on Des in this episode.
Yeah, I figured I normally would be like, is it okay? But I'm like, no, she's cool. She's like good. She's especially
Yeah.
with a
Read
sixth
me.
sign.
Tell the world about me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so much.
So tell
But
our listeners where they can find you, what you're up to. If you have any like special offers you want to talk about right now, go for it. But no pressure.
yeah, always. I mean, I'm
You're
like
always
I'm
doing
a intuitive
something in our
channel, so
world.
there's
I
always
know.
something, yeah, moving through me. But I'm as far as socials go, primarily Instagram. So as Raechelle Embrey, I recently have completely as a Pluto frequency that I am officially like removing the name Radiant Vibes on everything, and I am moving into Raechelle Embrey of my own. Like it's just like it's
Um,
really just
I
moving
remember that
me
move.
through
I
that.
remember taking my name on. Yeah, it's a big
Yeah.
move.
So, and Radiant Vibes is like, it's so, I mean, yeah, but anyways, it's so beautiful and I've created so much with it and it's all still here. So, anyways, yeah, so I have a really amazing group container that is open door. So as this is where, when we start to learn about ourselves is like, I do not do well with launch after launch after launch. So, I personally have created a space that's like, when the women that are here, the door is open, and when they feel the call, they'll come in, and it's called Reclaim Her, Empower Her. And it's a very intimate group space. So I really don't believe in like bringing like 20 women into a space,
Oh
because the
yeah.
changes and the activations and the transformations, it's very deeply personal. I love to create a lot of sisterhood and community in these connections. So that program is like really for anybody leaning into sacred soul expression through their business, if they're having issues with, resistance around visibility, around really leaning into the truth of who they are in their expression, that basically freezes them from really creating the business that they desire. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of energetics. It's a ton of energy work, but a lot of energetics and getting to the truth, like dismantling a
Mhm.
lot that's there so that we can start to recreate and co-create. And it's so fun. I love it. And it's just really here to support in life. And then I have one-to-one mentorship as Empress, which is really for like the woman who just wants to be nourished in all of it, just every part of it, who's ready just to like leave the hustle behind, like wants to create like real true intimacy in every area of her life.
Yeah.
And it's that's amazing. I have one spot open for that officially. So that is almost like right now tied up. And then um yeah, so this is what I said. I have like so much. So it's great.
I
But
know.
I have a spiritual community that I collaborate with a very dear friend, Jenny Kahn, that is for anybody, any woman to come in. It doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're, just somebody that really wants to deepen her experience with intuition in life. It's called The Temple. It's $222 a month. We have so much. We actually do like live Q&As and like some hot seat
Oh,
coaching in there. It's like
fun.
unbelievable for a membership. And like,
Yeah.
come as you go. We offer access to all of our like master classes in there as well. And I have something really fun that's birthing in July. That is going to be super cool for anybody that wants to get on the wait list for this. It's called Nourish. And it's really for any woman that wants to connect with the frequency of her moon, which I feel like is the number one energy. If you do nothing else with astrology ever, it's like connect with your moon sign, because this is like that we bring so much karma in through our moon signs that people don't even realize. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, my moon wants me to do this and to do this, but it's like it's the shadow, it's the unconscious. There's this inner work that to be done to really access the potency of our natal moons. And there's so much there because it's our emotional landscape. It's how we create an emotional intelligence, how we cultivate more capacity in our life, how we learn to create healthy energetic standards for ourselves and the people in our lives, how we cultivate more self-respect, more self-trust, all of these things. It's really going to be freaking cool. So in every moon sign, we will go in, and everything I do, there's always a lot of like one-to-one experience in a group container. So if y'all want to get on the wait list for that, like drop it in, because that's
Tell
going to
me
be
where to go. Tell me where to go.
Yes. So thank you for letting me share this. And my website is also Ray Radiant Vibes. You'll drop this stuff in there. And I do
I
have a
will.
podcast
But
called
also in the notes too.
yeah. And then I do have a podcast called The Untamed Soul, which Des is going to be on next week.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. We're gonna do it so soon.
Awesome.
This is so yummy. Thank you so much for your time today, for just diving in with me. Yeah, I can't wait for what we do together next. You guys make sure you go follow Raechelle, keep an eye on her. You might find me in Nourish if you're interested in that, because my heart's over here like palpitating over it.
Yeah, and I didn't mention this. I do offer one-to-one, which is a perfect doorway into my world. It's a one-to-one astro recoding session. So
Oh,
they're
beautiful.
right now
Okay.
$333, but they are going up to $444 in June. But right now they're 333. And if you really just want to experience what this is like and just to have a good entry point into my world, I would say the temple or, astro recoding is a great place to start that. And get on my email list, because like I just did 3 days of the channel.
Mhm.
It's super affordable,
Yeah. That's
$111,
the thing about us intuitives. We're just like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want
Yeah.
to do this.
It got to a certain point in my business of doing that. And these are offers that are spacious to me, right? And I
Yeah,
love them.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I will do things like that. Right now I'm doing High Priestess. It's like 2 weeks of like deep dive, and
Oh, yeah.
perfect for people to get their feet wet in this type of like energetic immersion that is created in spaces that we both lead in. So thank you so much. Love you. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you, my love. All right, you guys. That's it from us today. We're going to head out, but make sure you go ahead and follow Raechelle on her page and stay tuned for our podcast next week together. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you could leave a rating, a review, or just follow me on Instagram to stay tuned on all things love, life, and legacy. If we had any co-hosts today. Please make sure you follow them as well. We're all about the community expansion here. And until next time, stay sexy.